Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Patty Donohue. I am the product manager for Open CCCApply here at the CCC Technology Center. And I want to thank you all for being here today, Friday, February 19th. This is the first of two online presentations looking at some releases that we have coming up. The first session, starting now, is for the CCCApply Annual Update. And we're going to focus on the Open CCC account and the CCCApply standard application today. Starting at 2 o'clock, those of you who can stay, that would be great. We're going to be looking at the international application. So devoted completely to the international, starting at 2. This hour, we're just going to look at the account creation, some of the bugs, enhancements, and change requests that we've made to that system, and then the CCCApply standard application. And just a little heads up, we're not going to do a full demonstration of the whole application. We are going to do that for the Open CCC account because it just makes sense as we go through it. We have a developer here from Unicon who's Tyler Bain, and I'm going to introduce him again in a sec. He's going to be doing that account creation demo to show you some bug fixes and changes. But once I kind of take it back over from him, we're going to go to specific change requests and on-screen changes that we've made to the standard app. And hopefully, we're trying to have some time at the end for some Q&A. But what we plan to do is, because we figure you'll have a lot of questions, please use the chat window and just start throwing questions in there. Anything that you want to ask about the standard app or the account creation. If we have time at the end, we'll look through them and try to pick out some good ones that we have time to answer. But the rest of them, we're going to aggregate answers for, because there'll probably be a lot of the same kinds of questions, and then post those in like an FAQ style document on the CCCApply project site on Monday. That's when the recording or the recorded file from this session will be ready. So I will point out where. I will send you all an email. Since you registered, you'll get an email saying, hey, the recording's ready, pass it on. The FAQ is also ready. So so you'll be able to, any of your colleagues who couldn't be here today can see that, and then you can look at the answers to your chat questions. Okay, so I just want to take 1 or 2 minutes to look at, am I going to be able to do this? Yep, that didn't work so good. Hold on a sec. I had it down before. Okay, there we go. Let me go back up. Just to talk about a couple dates, and then we're going to jump into this. So today, of course, is February 19th. We're looking at the preview. And basically from today, we have just under 6 weeks until the annual update release happens on March 31st. So in between that time, a couple key dates. March 10th. So that's the next date that I will send you emails about, I will remind you about, but that's the date that when all of these changes that we're going to look at today are going to be rolled to the pilot site. And you guys have access to the pilot site. And I will also remind you of what that access is. But on that date, you'll be able to go and look at them yourself. You'll be able to submit some test applications. That is also the date that the annual report will be released. Now, today we're looking at kind of high level stuff. We don't have time to drill down on every tiny little detail of these changes, but the annual report does. So for every single change, and especially any new data fields, and we're gonna look at those, any logic changes, and there's very few, the annual report is gonna detail that out. And it's also going to tell you and your IT people exactly what you need to do to update your download file for some of these new data fields. And it goes into much more detail of what these mean. So that's March 10th. The other great news on March 10th is that we have recombined the 3-part CCCApply data dictionaries. So if you're like me and a little frustrated that we actually had 3 different documents where it used to be one kind of combined beautiful document, we've put those back together. We have a wonderful technical writer, Diana Bishop. I think she's going to be here today, but she has recompiled those 3 data dictionaries into one. And of course, all of these changes have been updated on it. So we will point that out. So that's the key date. And that also applies for the international application. March 22nd, I just want to remind any of you out there who haven't registered for the CCCApply Annual Workshop. It's at Fullerton College this year, which is in Southern California, and we are filling up fast. We are going to, if any of the 2 days, so it's the CCCApply Workshop on Tuesday the 22nd, and the next day, Wednesday the 23rd, is the eTranscript California Workshop. If either of those 2 days hits 300 people, which is huge, it's the most we've ever had, we have to cut, stop registration, and you'll miss out. So if you haven't registered, I'd be happy to send you another email about it, but it was included in this reminder for this session that I sent out 2 days ago. So we got the workshop on the 22nd, the release is on the 31st. I'm talking too much, so I'm going to hurry through this. More detailed, this will also be on the project site, just a little bit more about some of these key dates. Releases coming up over the course of this year, and we're not going to talk about it today, but I would be happy to field questions about the BOG application that did roll out on January 1st. We got the annual update, the international release on the 31st of March. We are going to do one quick accessibility release in June, and that is it. We will have met the standard that we are trying to meet. And then in September, we may have a supplemental release. This is information about the international. I'm going to come back to this at the end because I want to jump into this. And these are basically what we're going to look at today. Just a handful of the approved change requests, some bugs, and yeah, that's it. Real quickly, I threw this in here, so in case you're new to this CCCApply, we do have a change management schedule. So all year long, we're gathering change requests, and we're putting them before the CCCApply Steering Committee. They meet every other month. They hear change requests. If they unanimously approve them, then they go into a development cycle. So this kind of gives you an idea of what a change request goes through and how our development cycle works throughout the year. Will be posted on the, I just noticed this isn't the right one. So I will post the correct one with actual dates on the project site today, and I'll point you to it after the presentation. Sorry about that. This is supposed to say January, February, March. So without further ado, I'm not gonna go into this until I take it back from Tyler. I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Tyler Bain. He is from Unicon, and he's gonna give us a preview of the changes in the OpenCCC account system. So Tyler, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing and let you take that over.
Thank you, Patty, for that introduction. So today, as Patty said, I was just going to preview some of the changes that we had for the OpenCCC account creation portlet. As Patty said, since we have changes across all the pages, I was going to go ahead and just create an account from scratch, since we have to visit all of the pages through the flow. I'll just expand my screen a little bit so it's a little bit clearer what's going on. So I guess the first change that I wanted to dive into was here on the first page we had a notice to the students that stated OpenCCC is not compatible with smartphones. After a little bit of testing, we determined that that wasn't exactly a true statement, that while the user experience isn't exactly perfect, the user is able to get through the account creation process with a smartphone. So we just removed that so that we weren't confusing any students that might be using the product. Moving on to the next page, we had one change that we just recently got in was we added a section for you to be able to enter their preferred name. So I'll go ahead and enter some test data. And then previous names has been there since the dawn of time. However, we did add this section so that you can add your preferred name. It basically just opens up the same way that the previous name does. So it just gives you the option to enter a preferred first name, middle name, or last name, or to check that you don't have any of those in particular if you want to just specify one particular change. At this point, I don't think there's too much else to show for that particular feature. We do have, of course, the standard validation to ensure that you enter a first name, that you enter a middle name, that you enter a last name if you get to this section and you leave any of those fields blank. So for instance, if I tried to continue at this point after clearing my preferred first name, I will get a validation message asking for my preferred first name to be entered or to check the box. Moving on, the next section that I wanted to show is just an update to the SSN encouragement language. I'll just fill out my date of birth real quick so that we don't end up interfering with anything there. So on this section, if you check that you do not have a social security number and you click the continue button, we have the SSN encouragement language that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with in the account creation process. However, you might notice that this is significantly less verbose than it used to be, so we just improved the language and made it a little bit easier to go through both from an accessibility standpoint and then also to read it from the more average user standpoint. I'll go ahead and decline this to show the next feature that we added. If I can get back properly, excuse me. Sorry about that, I messed up and hit the wrong button. I'll just enter this information real quickly. So the next feature that I wanted to show was that we added some information here for international students so that because an international student isn't going to necessarily have either a social security number or a taxpayer identification number, we added an additional note here for international students, non-resident aliens, or other exceptions who may not have a social security number should check this box to say that they are an exception and that they do not have an SSN. If I were to continue at this point, as I did a few seconds ago, if I were to hit the continue button, I would encounter the SSN encouragement language. However, since the users are checking this box possibly because they're an international student, we didn't want to natter them excessively with that box. So we added another checkbox below that will allow the student to state that they are an international student, non-resident alien, or other exception, basically saying that they most definitely do not have a social security number for a legitimate reason. So if I check this box and I hit the continue button, I will not receive the SSN encouragement, just so that there's a little less rigmarole that they have to go through in order to get to the next page. Okay. So on to the next feature. We didn't really change too much on this page. The only information that the only thing that we changed was we added logic to make it so that when the user enters an international address on this for their current mailing address, they will receive a dialog that will ask them to confirm that they are in fact entering an international address and that that is their intention. Recently, we noticed that there were many students, a fairly good number of students that were entering what look like domestic addresses as international addresses, so we just wanted to add this confirmation dialog to ensure that students who accidentally checked this box just as they were hurrying through the application wouldn't end up accidentally entering an international address. So when I check this box, a confirmation modal pops up that asks me to confirm that I am indeed trying to enter an address that's outside the United States. The default is no, and if I continue at this point, so I'm saying that my address is not outside the United States, and I continue, then I'm presented with the domestic fields to fill out. However, if I click this and I click the yes button, then the international fields roll up and the domestic fields disappear. So I'm now prompted to enter information for an international address. And since I entered a date of birth that may be a minor, I also get this modal to enter my parent or guardian's address. So I'll go ahead and just autofill my address in here for, I don't think that there's anything else to show on this page, so I was going to continue on to the next page where we had some changes to the username validation and then also a new CAPTCHA to show off. And of course, if you have any questions along the point, either put them in the chat so that we can compile them at the end into the Q&A, or put them into that frequently asked questions format that Patty said that she would put together at the end of this presentation. The first item that I wanted to show on this on the third page of account creation was just a minor bug that we noticed and that we fixed out of band. So my username, my usual tbain1 username that I use, only has 6 characters. Before, we had a bug that would make it so that we wouldn't check to see if there was a duplicate username that unless the user had entered 7 characters. So now when I enter my 6-character username and click off the field, I do get that duplicate check there to make sure that I'm not entering a username that's already been input into the system. So if I continue with this and just add more characters to it, it now says that my username is available. And then I think the final item that I wanted to show here on this third page was just the addition of a new CAPTCHA field. This stemmed from some accessibility concerns that we had earlier in the year because our older CAPTCHA was just difficult to use. It was one of those standard CAPTCHAs that you encounter on the internet where you have to fill in the letters that are difficult to make out, and in some cases we found out that that was difficult to use from an accessibility standpoint. So we're using a new reCAPTCHA system that I believe is from Google that depends more on the heuristics of how you interact with the page to determine whether you're a human or not. So as you're clicking through the page, if you're exhibiting behavior that makes you look like a bot, you will encounter when you check this box, you'll encounter a window that asks you to fill out, that asks you to choose images that contain certain items that they ask you for. However, in most use cases, if you just simply check the box, it's able to determine that you're a human without any further interaction. So it just allows you to continue without having to enter any strange characters or ask you to enter any characters that you can't really hear very well. I believe that was it for this third page, and as always, if there are any questions, go ahead and add them to the chat, and then wait until the Q&A session later on, or the FAQ that Patty's going to put together. The last item that I wanted to show was just that we added logic here, so that at the last step when we confirm that your account has been created, we display your new CCC ID in here, front and center on the confirmation page, so you're able to make out or you're able to determine what your CCC ID is, and you can use that later on for help desk questions that you may have to ask, or other instances where your CCC ID might be of use. Patty, I think that was pretty much all I wanted to show at this point. Did you have anything particular that you wanted me to touch on that I might have missed?
Well, I have to admit I was paying attention to the Zoom problem we're having. Of course, I tried, guys. 50 was our max for some reason. I did work it out with them to have a 200-seat presentation today, but people were getting maxed out after the 50th person. So I've been kind of trying to get their attention, and they're working on it. We'll see if they get it fixed before the end of the session. But I'm not sure. Did I miss the preferred name field section? Did you go over that?
I showed that up at the beginning when I started the presentation, though if you think that I missed anything, I could go back and revisit it.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that was shown. As I said, I was paying attention to this problem. So thank you, Tyler.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, so, just a minute as we switch gears, go ahead and throw some questions in the chat. Again, if any of your colleagues got locked out, give them my apologies. I did try to avoid this from happening, but you know how that goes. Okay, so I'm going to take over sharing the screen here. Going back to just a couple notes about March 10th and what that date means. Again, I will send everybody an email with this information, but on March 10th, when all the changes roll to the pilot site, you can go there and see them. You can prepare. At least, at that point, you can do a test. You can set up your pilot download file to add the new data fields into it. You can run tests on any of the logic changes. And again, we're going to see those. They're very minimal. Most of it is like hidden magic, like rechanged some of the wording in the logic, and or some of the data fields that do the same thing, that result in the same outcome. So there isn't any huge logic changes happening, but nevertheless, you should know about them. And so again, those will all be detailed. Anytime there's a new data field being added to the application, usually it's optional. I mean, you don't have to grab those data fields. Now, a lot of these changes, or two of the ones you're going to see, resulted from legislative changes. So you're going to want to make these changes. But anytime that you change your download file, you need to update your download client jar file. So we will make that available so you don't have to go hunting for it. All of those new jar files are backwards compatible, so it's not going to erase anything that you had, in your download file previously. But you will need to do some IT steps to add those new data fields into your downloads. And then, so you would have 3 weeks from March 10th until the date of the release to do all that testing in pilot. And then when the release happens, you would migrate it over. And your IT team will know how to do that, but we will work with you if you need help on that. Okay, so let's see here. Am I going to be able to do this? Okay, so some of the new data fields. We have the new preferred name fields, as Tyler showed you. And that was a change request that came to the steering committee from Bill Mulrooney from El Camino College and some other colleges. It's kind of, one of those ironic things. We get 3 or 4 requests of the same thing at the same time. And it's mostly to support our transgender student population. They have a preferred name they want to use, and they should be able to use that, or at least provide that information to you. So we've made room for that, and those are downloadable fields. So if you want to add the preferred name fields to your download file, you'll need to, update your format file. And this, is an IT task, and then update the jar file so that, your job file points to the server and it says grab those fields too, in addition to all our other fields. So we have the preferred name fields, that new SSN exception field, and that, again, was a request made mainly by the international advisory committee saying, look, international students don't have social security numbers. This is confusing to them. So we've done our best, because we are bound by IRS and other legal requirements to have that, the text that appears on screen for students, we have to say that. So we couldn't take it away. Unfortunately, even though they're international students and they don't have a social security number, they still have to read that. Whether they understand it or not, we still have to present it, in other words. So this was the way that we solved that issue, was give them a checkbox to say, I don't have one because I'm an international student, and then we're not bombarding them with that encouragement pop-up box. There's a new integrity flag we're going to look at. It's part of the foster youth changes we made. And then one thing we're not going to show, because you can't really show this, but we did develop an optional secure supplemental question field. So your supplemental questions, which are optional, that you define and add to your application. All of those different question type data fields, whether it's a drop-down menu or a checkbox or a radio button, all of those fields are, unencrypted. So they're not secure. So that's why when we're working with you to set up your application, we say, don't ask for any, risky information. Don't ask for their social security number again. We wouldn't let you do that anyway. But all of the information that's coming through with those supplemental fields so far have been unencrypted. So we have developed a secure supplemental question. It's a text input field where they would, type in something and not select something. And so that you can set that up if you want to ask something secure and have it, be encrypted during transport, when it's being downloaded, and then at rest, and then it will unencrypt when you upload it to your student information system. Hopefully I articulated that correctly. So let's take a look at some of these, and I'll come back to this. We looked at the new preferred, we looked at the new social security number. So I'm going to jump to the application real quick. Bear with me. And so I am ready to, let me see something here. I actually wanted to go to a different college. Okay, so I'm a student. I am signing in. I have already created an Open CCC account, and I'm coming to my applications page, maybe for the first time in a while. So one of the change requests that were approved, and we've been working on this for a while, was to add auto population back into the standard application. So this applies to the standard application only, not in the Open CCC account, not in the VOG, and not in the international. So just for the standard domestic app. And so what we did is, at this point, when they first start a new application, they will see this question, so, hey, since your last application, your last application was submitted on this date to this college. Do you want us to copy that information into this new application to save you some time? So they have to opt in for this auto population. If they say yes, they can start their new application. So a couple key requirements for this. One is steering was very, very concerned about getting good data. We don't want old data that could have changed and have them rush through and just say yes, yes, yes to it all. We want to collect new, clean data. So they put a time limit on it, only within the past 2 years. So if we have found that they've submitted an application within the past 2 years, we'll present this question on screen, telling them what college we found it for and when it was last submitted. So there's a time limit, 2 years. And we also did not implement the auto population for any field in the application that has to do with residency. They just made a decision and said, we don't want to risk it. Let's have them, enter in any field that either relates to the RDD, the residency determination date, or any kind of residency logic field. So, we had to go through each field and say, this one, yes, this one, no. So let's see what it looks like. I'm going to start a new application. We did not implement it on this enrollment page, of course, because for the most part, we want to get clean data, and it's going to be a new term. And we want to capture, their ed goal again anew. So I'm going to select my enrollment info. Sorry. Oh, I can't do twice. Okay, bear with me, guys. I already had a tester out there. See how good our validation worked? It caught that I had already started an application or submitted an application for a term, and it will not let me submit another application if I've already submitted one to a term. So, okay, I've done that one too. Okay, let's hope this one then. Yay, winter 2016. Okay, so this person obviously just wanted to point out they didn't give the social security number last time, so we're going to remind them with this box. And then here's an example of auto population here on this page. The current mailing address. I had said that my current mailing was the same as my permanent the last time I applied, and it is auto populating that. If it's not the same, I would depopulate it and change my information. Right? If it's the same, I'll go ahead and recheck it and then continue. So as you go through this, when you look at it in the pilot environment on March 10th or after March 10th, you can see, pretty clearly which fields were auto-populated. The gender field we said yes to. Now the AB620 fields, by the way, it is only showing these fields because I am a non-minor. The account that I applied with is an adult. The AB620, which is the transgender or sexual orientation survey questions, we opted to not display those for minors and not auto-populate that information. So I will go ahead and just jump into the next change request because we're right here. Another request that was submitted from El Camino College and other colleges. And this one's a little bit, not controversial, but it's a very important subject, right? This AB 620 situation, which, if you're familiar with it, the California Community Colleges was actually one of the first educational systems that addressed this, this piece of legislature that was very, very vague. It was very hard for us to interpret how to address this. Basically, they said, we need, we want to collect this information, do it. So we had to actually try to interpret this very vague law, and we made some decisions, the steering committee did, working with the chancellor's office, that, since the law was so vague in what they were asking, and they were basically saying any new forms, including CCCApply online form, needs to include these questions gathering information about the student's transgender status and their sexual orientation status. That we had to not only collect this, but aggregate it and transfer it to the chancellor's office. And they also have some requirements. They have to publish some data on the chancellor's office website annually. Since then, this was implemented in 2 years ago, the first phase of it. We took what we had and we did the best we could. But since then, we haven't really gotten any guidance. So those of you out there wondering, it's like, why don't we get that data? You know, we are still looking for guidance, not only from the chancellor's office, but from the state legislature on what, you know, I think that they rushed through this possibly. They didn't think it through. I mean, this is very highly sensitive data. We don't want it to get into the hands of anything malicious. So right now, the way it is we have these questions on here for non-minors. We don't even see it. It gets parsed out. The collected data gets parsed out to a separate database, a secure database that the chancellor's office has access to. And what they are doing with it, we still are not sure. There's still a lot of questions, so we're going to continue to do the best we can with this. There's a group that represents the LGBT community in the California community colleges. Really great group of people. They approached the steering committee, and we have formed a subcommittee that is looking at, you know, how are we gonna, you know, have we addressed this appropriately? Are we asking the right questions? Where's the data going? You know, so they're kind of going to monitor this and be advocates for CCCApply moving forward. So, of course, they had all kinds of requests that they wanted. They wanted different fields to appear in the dropdown. They want to collect different stuff. So what we decided was that they were going to, working with the Academic Senate, they were going to present our position that we need guidance from somebody to the state, and I believe we're still waiting to hear back from them. But they had a whole laundry list of changes they wanted made, and we felt that we couldn't rush into making those changes until we did get guidance. The one change we did approve was moving. They asked for, so if you recall, and what appears right now on the production server is that, you know, the top information appears like this. We have gender. These are the values: male, female, decline to state. And by the way, we don't have control over these, guys. This is dictated by the Office of Civil Rights, that a student does not have to answer that question. So we're kind of stuck between what you guys want, what MIS wants, and what the state, you know, requires us to do. Or excuse me, the federal government requires us to do. But so we have the gender field. There's no change to that. But if you recall, the do you consider yourself transgender field was down here, down below the gender field. And then the sexual orientation question was also below that. They felt that it was very important that the transgender population be on the same level as the traditional gender, gender values that appear. So there's the same, the gender question. So we had to do a lot of kind of creative planning here to move that data field up. I know it seems like it should be such an easy thing, but when you resize a page like this, and if a student is trying to apply on their smartphone or a tablet, the responsive design is going to change the layout. So we did our best. See if I can show you what I'm talking about. Bear with me a sec. If you resize this page, they did a great job of just moving over slowly until the point where it's going to have to wrap. And it wasn't wrapping cleanly for a while, but they've got it now, so it's wrapping nicely. It's just a little change, but it took a lot of creative planning there. So we honored that request. The transgender field now is, in an equal place with the gender field. Nothing's changed for the collection of this data. Nothing's changed on where it's being stored. And we're still kind of in the same position that we're waiting for guidance on how we move forward from here. So that is the transgender change that was made. Let's go back. I want to make sure. So auto population, we did talk about that one. The gender AB620 layout change. Does not display for minors. That didn't change. Okay, so the next change, let's jump to that one. And that is on the education page. So what I'm going to do, sorry about this, but I have to be, to demonstrate this next one, I have to be applying to the right term. And let's go for, let's see, I'm pretty sure it's this one. Okay, so the next change is, there's two changes here. The first one's fairly simple. There was a change request made due to the HiSET and the tax GED equivalency exams. If you recall, on our high school education level values or response options that appear, one of them said, I have passed the GED test and received a certificate of high school equivalency. So the change request came in saying, hey, we want you to add another value that says that they've passed the HiSET equivalency test. And then there was another one that said, we want you to say that they passed the tax equivalency test. So what we did was, instead of getting specific, we revised the GED value. So it no longer specifies GED. Now it says, I passed a high school equivalency test, and received a certificate of high school equivalency. So since you most likely collect that documentation of proof anyway, we felt a generic response then kind of covers not only the HiSET, the GED, but anything else that might come down the pipe later as far as high school equivalency. So that change was made. The next change on the education page, this is kind of in response to a change that was made last annual update regarding the high school education level, where, and if you recall this, it's kind of hard to explain, but those of you who know, a high school senior. Okay, here's kind of the user story. The high school senior is applying for Butte College or your college for a summer term. Okay, let's say it's April or something and they're getting ready. But they're graduating on, let's say, June 9th. But the term they're applying for, summer term, starts on June 5th, a couple days before they graduate, right? So technically, their enrollment status would be that they're in high school or college at the same time. That legally, technically, on that date, that's their college enrollment status. Well, if you're familiar with, the residency restrictions and the changes we made last year, if you are enrolling in high school or lower grade at the same time, a special admit, if you're a senior or lower, we have grayed out so that you can't make these two values, your enrollment status and your high school ed level status, have to match pretty much in this case. You can't say that you're in high school or lower grade and then say, but I'm a graduate. You can't be in high school and be a graduate. So we grayed that out so that, because we were having problems with that. But we didn't realize that it was causing another problem for these special terms that start a couple days before, a senior may graduate. So what we found was, it was actually a kind of a revelation. There was a little clause in the data dictionary that said, because if you're familiar with the RDD, right, the date before the term begins, and that's what all of our most of our residency logic is based on. The RDD in this case, and it basically says, if the term starts in May or June, okay, so if the term starts in May or June, the RDD will be the first day of July. So it pretty much solved our problem. And this was actually in the data dictionary. Somehow, some way that got moved or it got changed. So we're putting it back so that if a term starts in May or June, they are going to answer these questions based on the date of the first day of July. and it solves all those problems. Because then they can answer truthfully. Even if they are still a senior in high school on the date they're filling out this application, right? Because we'll look at RDD once we get out of the education page. On the date they're filling out the application, they're still a senior, but we're going to ask them what their enrollment status is as of July 1st. On July 1st, they're going to answer truthfully. I will be a first-time student in college on that date. And their high school ed level status, they can answer truthfully. I will have received a diploma on that date. So this should solve all those problems. This will be released in time for 2016 summer. So thank you all for bearing with that. It was kind of, it was tricky. We had to get steering, to hash it around for a while. And then once we found that clause and we implemented this, we feel it solves the problems. And then they put in their true completion date and carry on. Okay, so that's the personal information and the education changes that are being made. I'm going to jump to show you a real quick one in the citizenship military area. And this is a tiny one, but it was brought to our attention. We did fix it. In the citizenship, let me get that out there. In the citizenship status area, if the student is a visa holder and they're selecting their visa type and they click on the help box to explain basically what visa type means, there was a link here taking them to the Department of State website. That link was broken. We got a lot of complaints about that, so we fixed that. Little one. Okay, now we get to the two big ones. And let's see our time. Okay, I'm gonna go through it kind of fast. If you have questions, I'm happy to throw them in the chat. But the U.S. military status. So there's a couple reasons why we changed the military status. First, to comply with AB 13, the VACA bill, and also to align to our MIS requirements. I can't tell you how many requests that I've gotten over the years to break out the Army Reserves and the National Guards, to align better to SGO1 and SGO2. So we've taken this opportunity, because we have to comply with the VACA bill, to change the response values to better align to your MIS requirements. So part of that AB 13 was basically expanding our net of veteran discharge date. So it used to be that within 1 year of their discharge, and I know that there's some other requirements, they have 2 years to use that 1 year. We wanted to capture that, and basically that, that was part of the logic, that if it was in 1 year, then they were eligible for certain benefits. Now we've expanded it, or they have expanded it to 3 years. So we had to go in and make some changes because the response values were tied to that 1 year, if you recall. Let me go a little faster. So we changed the response values. We updated the Area C logic to look for the 3 years of discharge. We just updated the language on the flag. We've got the same flag. And then we updated the other military fields based on these changes. So I'll show you what those are. Real quick, here's the old values. So if they said, what is your military status? These were the old ones. And you can see like value 4, served in the U.S. military, discharged within the last year. We were tied to that. It's not really the best design going in. And 5, served in the military over a year ago. And then there's that 6, currently in reserves and National Guard. Lots of requests to break that out because MIS breaks it out. So 4 and 5 and 6 were problematic going in. So we've changed the response values. Same military status field, but when they drop down, they're going to see 11. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 responses. Most of them have changed a little bit, if only the language. So you can see we have I'm currently serving on active duty. The next one is my parent, guardian, or spouse is on active duty. 4 was we changed the language. We took out the 1 year and we said, I served in the U.S. military. It can be any time. We're going to capture that with the discharge date field. 7 is my parent, guardian served in the military. Same thing. We're gonna find out the dates from their discharge date field. 8 now is I'm a member of the reserve. 9, my parent, guardian was a member of his reserve. This aligns to MIS. A, I am a member of the National Guard. B, my parent, guardian is a member. So I know it's kind of a mouthful, and if you see it here, it's a lot, but it was the best solution to this issue. And now it aligns to MIS, it aligns to AB 13, and you can see that the ones in question that we went in to change, I served in the U.S. military. Now, if they select that, we're capturing their date of discharge here. So in the logic behind the scenes, that's where we're going to figure out the 3 years. And then in the future, if that changes in the future, if it goes to 5 years, we don't have to make any on-screen changes again. We just change the logic in the back end. Not bad conduct, honorable conduct. The state of legal residence, these are the same fields that appeared before. They appear again. Were you stationed in California when you were discharged? So we're capturing the same stuff based on new response values. So there's no new data field. There's just new response values. And I know that some of you may need to look at some of your processes, your reporting. If you had, either reports or workflows tied to the old responses, you have 6 weeks now to take a look at these and see how, if anything, needs to be changed. Real quick, going back to this to make sure I don't miss anything. So we revised the language. We split out the reserves. So no new change to the data field, no change to the download file, but you should know that there are new download responses. In the logic part, all we did was change the dates of the discharge to look for 3 years instead of 1. The same flag triggers, but the flag now basically says, this person was discharged within 3 years instead of within the past year. It still results in the same calculation of C2. Yeah, that wasn't so bad. So the last one, and this is another kind of complicated one, and I know we're bumping right up to the edge. So if we have some, hopefully the international folks won't get locked out. So I might have to make this quick. The same kind of changes were made to the foster youth. And I'd be happy to do another session, or maybe even after the international, I can go back to this. But basically, to comply with AB 12, they extended the age that you've exited. Benefits and services have been extended from 19 to age 24. The John Burton Foundation and the Chancellor's Office has basically said that our question was a little confusing, and they felt that students were not self-reporting based on how confusing our question was. So if you remember our question, now this question hasn't changed. It's still going to say, have you ever been in court-ordered foster care? But now if they say yes, the response values are different. Before, and I agree, it was a little overkill. We were trying to figure out priority registration, California residency, and foster care status all in our responses. We don't need to worry about residency because we have all the other residency logic to figure that out. What we need to capture, this is what the Chancellor's Office says, is when did they exit foster care? Because that's what the AB 12 and the other services are based on. So they say, yes, these are the new values. And that's all that changes on screen for the student. We did change also the pop-up help to align with these new values. So we explain aged out, exited the foster care system before my 18th birthday, what does that mean? And if you aren't sure when you aged out or when you exited, we also give, a phone number and an email to get more information. So again, I'm happy to send out some information about the foster care. I'm a little concerned about our international session starting. So that was the last change. Again, everything that you saw today is going to be in the annual report, detailed out, including all the bugs that we found. There's not a ton of them, but we didn't show you everything because it would take forever, and some of them are so technical that we can't show them. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and remind you that look for the email coming from me. Also, wait a sec. Just want to see one thing here. If you haven't signed up for an account on ccctechnology.info, please do that, because that is where we're posting. We're going to start using that exclusively for information on everything. Releases, incidences, if there's an outage. So I think I put that in the last email I sent out. Please go there and register for an account and follow the CCC system alerts page to get automatic notifications on any announcements that we send. Okay, so I want to thank you so much. Wow, I can't believe there's only 19 questions in the chat. If you're staying for the international presentation, go ahead and stay on the line. If you're dropping off, thank you for being here. I will post this recording on the CCCApply project site. We will send out a notice to everyone who registered, and we'll post it on the CCCtechnology.info site. So thank you and have a great day.